Solo Sikoa is the real hero in this story, my brothers and sisters, and I cannot wait for him to dethrone and humble Roman Reigns. My brothers and sisters, it seems the heels advocate had to make this video because honestly, I had a lot of bloodline fatigue before this segment happened. I really am sick and tired of us rinsing and repeating the same old bloodline storylines and the same old setups because half a decade ago, literally right back in 2020, 2021, we were already doing the stuff that we're doing today. Fast forward all that time and we're still doing it. There is a lack of creativity in all of this, but the one thing that really came out of it that has some real value is the fact that a lot of the wrestlers within the bloodline have kind of grown up, grown past, and we've, gotten a lot more character development from, their side. For example, Solo Sikoa, when he first entered the WWE's main roster, what was he like? When Roman Reigns brought him in at Clash at the Castle to help him defeat Drew McIntyre, he was basically the mute reinforcer in the background, okay? And this kind of delved into this whole segment of Solo Sikoa is just a shadow figure, and he's not like the Usos, right? The Usos will talk, they'll, maybe give Roman Reigns a lot of headache, maybe a pushback here and there, but Solo Sikoa wasn't like that at all. Solo, he knew his job, he knew what to do, and he went out there and he executed. So you can't blame Solo Sikoa at all. So much so that Roman Reigns basically came out, and at the end of 2023, way after Jey Uso already left the bloodline and teamed up with Cody Rhodes to become tag champions, Roman Reigns looked at Solo Sikoa and said, "You know what, Solo? You are now the tribal prince," right? There's even a clip of this. Let's, roll the tape. It says, "Solo, you are the tribal prince, the next guy in line, the heir to the throne, the next tribal chief. You're going to keep this family responsible. You're going to, take care of this family. This is what you're going to do." And, poor old Jimmy Uso in the background thought that he was going to get, that next accolade. But clearly he wasn't man enough to, be considered for that role. But nonetheless, my brothers and sisters, those were the words of Roman Reigns. So when Roman Reigns then goes out at WrestleMania 40 and loses, right? Solo Sikoa tried to help him out once again. He tried to spike Cody Rhodes just as he went for the crossroads once again. But then John Cena came out to equalize the whole scene. And then, as we remember, the entire WWE Avengers came out to take care of the bloodline. So after the fact that he lost the title, where the hell did Roman Reigns go to? Roman Reigns essentially abandoned the bloodline. Roman Reigns just left everybody to their own fates. He didn't really care at all. And so the following night, Solo Sikoa, Jimmy Uso, and Paul Heyman, they come out and they're cutting a promo. Roman isn't there. And basically, Solo Sikoa says to Paul Heyman, "Hold on a minute, Paul. There are consequences to losing, right? So when you lose, you have to pay for the price." And that was not initially meant for Roman Reigns, but it was meant for Jimmy Uso, who lost to Jey Uso on night 1 WrestleMania 40. And he basically says, "All right, Jimmy, you made a mistake and now you have to pay." Roman isn't here to discipline, to make the lackeys basically fall in line and, feel the law. And so he takes it upon himself, right? That's his job. He is the reinforcer. He is the enforcer of the family. Roman Reigns said he is the next guy in line. He's the heir to the throne. He's a tribal prince. So he's got that role, right? And so when he goes out there and he makes Jey Uso pay for his mistake of losing and he brings out Tama Tonga, that is well within his rights if you think about it. And when Paul Heyman is over there basically crying and being sad and trying to snitch him right away to the tribal chief on his phone, Solo's like, "Man, give me that stupid phone." You know what I'm saying? Who says you're even talking to the guy? And even if you are, who cares? He's not here, right? I'll take care of business while he's not here. And that's a very, very fair point of view, right? If you're Solo Sikoa, all you really ever wanted to do was make sure the WWE Undisputed Championship was within the family. You didn't really think about anything else other than that. All you really cared about was the success, safety, and the further growth of the family. That's all you cared about. That's all your role was. And you don't really have to sit there and look at Solo Sikoa and say, "Oh yeah, he was mute. He didn't do anything all too much. He was always losing most of his matches." So yeah, okay, that's all fair. But aside from those other aspects, Solo Sikoa was well within his right, within the confines of the bloodline. So taking out Jimmy Uso was only the beginning of it. And so when Tama Tonga enters the fold, and then Tonga Loa joins as well, and then ultimately the Samoan werewolf Jacob Fatu comes into play as well, that is where we reach a new level. That is where we completely abandon Jey Uso and basically kick him out, and still retain Paul Heyman, because Paul Heyman is the wise guy, right? He's the wise man. So when Paul Heyman is still not acknowledging Solo Sikoa, when basically Roman Reigns still hasn't been around for over 100 days, for 4 months he hasn't shown his face, where is this loyalty to, right? And so when Paul Heyman says, no, I will not acknowledge you as my tribal chief, I mean, Solo Sikoa, he was well within his right to just powerbomb him, bro. Right? If Roman Reigns really loved Paul Heyman that much, if Roman Reigns really loved Solo Sikoa, Jimmy Uso, if he really loved the bloodline so much, he wouldn't have been away for that long. He would have returned, and he would have gone back on the mission to get back the gold, but he didn't. So Solo took it upon himself. He got himself a match against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam 2024. He goes in there, he's having a, pretty decent match, I guess, but the fact is this, he could have his lackeys help him out to win, right? So if Roman Reigns never really came out, it was basically a guaranteed Solo Sikoa victory. Maybe not. Maybe Jimmy or Jay could team up and help out Cody Rhodes. But, there is a high probability that he could cheat to win, just like Roman Reigns did in many of these instances. And so that is not what happens, right? Then Roman Reigns comes out because God forbid, right? God forbid Solo Sikoa's little goofy ass can go out there and do something for himself, right? You know what I'm saying? Of course not, right? Of course not. Only the big chief, right? Only the big dog, right? He can go out there and get accolades, and he can get gold, and he can do the good stuff. So hell no. Solo Sikoa immediately gets blocked, roadblocked, set aside, Superman punched, speared, and Cody Rhodes secures the victory 1-3, and Solo Sikoa has his championship match opportunity basically ruined by the guy that abandoned the family. So not only do you abandon the family, not only do you abandon Solo, Heyman, Jimmy, no, you also then have the gall, the audacity to get in the way of Solo Sikoa trying to bring back the gold that you don't want to come back to get. That is insane to me. So from that point of view, Solo Sikoa is well within his right. Now, were his means to that end justified or honorable or good or moral? No, so him going out there and destroying Jimmy, his older brother, him going out there and destroying Paul Heyman is not good either. So he definitely had, the heel nature to him, and that was not, the good way to go about it. But at the same time, is Roman Reigns any different? Is Roman Reigns not just as ruthless, if not more ruthless? Is Roman Reigns not more, petty than that? You know what I mean? Solo Sikoa is only the reflection of Roman Reigns. He's only the byproduct. Whatever Solo is because it's the way that Roman Reigns was. So you can't blame him. But of course, Roman Reigns wasn't just done yet. The new bloodline tried to fight Roman. Jacob Fatu attacks him here and there, and he definitely looks dangerous with his new bloodline. And so all things basically come to this point at the War Games, and the OG bloodline go up against the new bloodline. I think Roman Reigns won that match. And then we have a final match to settle the score, I believe, at Bad Blood 2024, where Roman Reigns literally teams up with Cody Rhodes against Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa, I believe. And, at that night, obviously, Roman Reigns once again is going to win and go over. But the betrayal was so vast, right? It was so, insanely, almost sickening, the way that Roman Reigns turned on his own family. He left them all behind. And then he comes back to basically, punch down Solo Sikoa even more. So much so that The Rock came back, right? The Rock came back and he basically sent Roman Reigns a message like, dude, what are you doing, right? He raised the eyebrow. He looked at him and he said, what the hell is this guy doing? And he sends a warning shot, right? He puts his hand in the air, 1, 2, 3. And then he says, there you go, basically. And that was a sign, right? The Rock was not approving of Roman Reigns doing what he was doing. And so they finally have their final match at Raw Netflix 1. the Tribal Chief status match. And obviously Roman Reigns is going to go over on that match, and that basically settled the entire feud. Going into that match, Solo Sikoa said that if he loses the match, he's going to have to go out there and acknowledge Roman Reigns. But, you know, as we know, Solo Sikoa did not do such a thing. And Solo Sikoa was justified to not do such a thing, right? Solo Sikoa was abandoned by his Tribal Chief, and him abandoning the Tribal Chief back was only justified, right? If Roman can go out there and do his own thing and move on, and so can Solo, right? So in that confines, in that point of view, I don't mind this storyline being left off at that time. And, you know, neither did I really care. So when Solo Sikoa decides to be like, all right, I'm sick of the bloodline, I'm sick of everything, I'm sick of Roman, I'm sick of him always getting in my way, I'm going to do my own thing and try and become my own man. He goes to SmackDown and he creates the MFTs, right? And by that point, he kind of lost a little bit of favor from Jacob Fatu because he lost his status as, you know, the bloodline's fake or new Tribal Chief, because Jacob Fatu was the enforcer of the new Bloodline Tribal Chief. So he had to go back and maybe, you know, convince Jacob Fatu a little bit. They got back together, and then Solo Sikoa obviously was plotting against Jacob Fatu. He was being a very villainous heel, and Jacob Fatu ultimately parted ways from Solo Sikoa and became his own man, and Solo went out to then create the MFTs with Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, Tala Tonga, JC Mateo. He had a big family, so he definitely looked like he had a lot of backup when he needed it. So that was nice to see. Now, from that point onward, basically from the beginning of 2025 all the way till now, right, a year and a half later, Solo Sikoa maintained his spot at SmackDown as this guy with the big family that really cannot do anything other than the mid card, right? So when he basically rinsed and repeated that whole plot line, and we saw JC Mateo get cut and Tonga Loa get cut, we kind of got to a point where, okay, now we've kind of rinsed and got the most that we could out of Solo Sikoa, trying to be this leader figure, right? Because honestly, Jacob Fatu surpassed him by that point. Jimmy Uso surpassed him by that point. Jey Uso surpassed him once again at that point. So Solo Sikoa was clearly the lowest ranked Uso or Fatu within the WWE. And so he kind of had to look around and maybe refigure his entire mission and his entire goal. And I think the lowest point for him was when he had to feud with the Wyatt Six over a freaking Timu Lantern, right? So at that point, I thought to myself, all right, Solo Sikoa, you're kind of done. It's only a matter of time that he's going to be back with Jacob Fatu or somebody from the bloodline. And he had basically Tonga Loa left, or Tama Tonga and Tala Tonga left, and they decided to be, all right, I'm going to turn my back on you as well, Solo. Like, you're just too obsessed with trying to get in the way of the bloodline and Roman Reigns, and so we're going to leave what you're doing, all right? We're going to leave you behind and we're going to do our own thing. And so Tala Tonga and Tama Tonga, they go their separate ways. They stay on SmackDown, and Solo Sikoa starts feuding with the Usos, right? Then they have their match at SummerSlam, the tag match, and that was that. From that point onward, now we're here, right? He's been delivered to the Tribal Chief. He lost to Jey Uso on Raw, and now he had to basically confront Roman Reigns. And I'm not going to lie, that Roman Reigns segment was pretty gold. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that Roman Reigns is not entertaining when he can be. And I'm not going to say that a segment was bad when it really was good. So I'll give him credit for the entire segment. And the best thing out of this whole thing is how basically everything is tied back together, right? You have LA Knight, who I wasn't really too happy that he's getting a shot, right? Because it just felt like a consolation prize. It just didn't feel like LA Knight deserved or earned a title shot, or he would be in a position where he would be a legitimate threat. I don't think he still is a legitimate threat either, but at least he has Solo behind him, maybe Jacob Fatu now as well. So it might create a lot more backup if he needs it to beat Roman Reigns. And so maybe that'll spice up the entire match a little bit more. But the idea that LA Knight is going to beat Roman Reigns for the title seems a little bit too far-fetched. But if he did, it wouldn't be a bad thing either. But honestly, I don't think that Roman Reigns is going to come out here and lose a title. I think he'll just hold it all the way to WrestleMania, because the way that we're going, indicates to me that we're building Roman Reigns up to be a new figure, right? Roman Reigns is this guy that for all these years always needed backup to win, but ever since losing to Cody, he's kind of reformed himself and tried to do his own thing. And at WrestleMania 41 against CM Punk and Seth Rollins, he came up short. And, you know, it basically was about how much can the tribal chief reform himself and become his, you know, best self. You know, how much can he not depend on the Usos? And that was also a storyline that we were experimenting with. At the end of 2025, I believe, we saw Roman Reigns lose to Big Back Bronson Reed because the Usos got involved and they basically screwed up the whole, you know, setup for him. And, you know, they got in the way and, you know, it just ruined everything for Roman Reigns. And he made sure to tell the Usos that they can no longer get involved in his matches, right? It's just that he no longer requires them. A lot of people say that Roman Reigns can't win a match without the Usos. So now he's trying to make it a point that he can. So then we go into War Games, and honestly, you know, Roman Reigns in 2025 was horrendous. No real storylines were built up, and I'm glad that he went out there and he won the Royal Rumble because that was really the victory that he needed. Because if really he kept doing what he was doing after WrestleMania 40, you know, he's going to lose a lot of credibility and a lot of stock, and I don't think a lot of people would have cared about him at all. And so now he's at a spot where he can win matches alone. He doesn't need anybody else. So when he's facing off against LA Knight, the likelihood that LA Knight can beat a Roman Reigns that's basically the best version of himself is pretty unlikely, right? And so it's guaranteed, for me at least, that Roman Reigns is going to win. And we're going to keep on walking the rest of the year through with Roman Reigns as a champion, with the ultimate goal being that hopefully The Rock is going to return at WrestleMania 43 in Saudi. And I hope that's the case, right? If that's the case, then all the strong booking is going to be worth it. All the strong booking then would make sense because it would basically set up the stage for Roman Reigns to lose to The Rock, and, you know, maybe The Rock to introduce this whole new faction, right? The final bloodline or the TKO group or whatever the hell it might be. The final boss is going to be this overlord, this overseer. He's going to have all this power that never was seen before. And he is the only guy that can truly do that, right? A lot of the times that Roman Reigns was at the top of the company, there was nobody above him. And realistically, nobody still isn't over him, right? You can make the argument for Cody, but Cody and Roman are so separated and like they're just giving Cody random losses here and there. You know, it's tanking his stock as well. So it's basically up to The Rock to come back into the WWE and create this whole new faction that will totally destroy the Bloodline, because at this point, I think the Bloodline needs to be destroyed. I don't think that we can have a new tribal chief. I don't think, despite, I think, you know, it could be a great storyline if we, you know, if we do have a new tribal chief. That would be an interesting storyline, you know, whether it be Solo, Jacob, or Jay. You know, I don't doubt that would be an interesting storyline to see, but it wouldn't be something sustainable because Roman Reigns is just not going to be the guy that's going to, you know, allow those lackeys to be their own man, right? Like, I'm talking about out of kayfabe. Like, I don't really think Roman Reigns would ever want to do business with his cousins where he's having to acknowledge them as a tribal chief. It just doesn't seem something that he would do. And so the only guy where I could see him having to do that is with The Rock. And it isn't because he wants to, it's because, you know, he has to. The Rock is literally his boss. He's over him, right? He can have creative control. He can do whatever he wants. He can make Roman Reigns do whatever he wants out of kayfabe and in kayfabe. And that's going to, you know, really make it believable. So when The Rock comes back and maybe potentially beats Roman Reigns, and he forms a new bloodline with Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa, and, you know, Tonga Loa, Tala Tonga, that's going to create a new faction that maybe Roman Reigns has to, you know, operate under, you know? Could you imagine The Rock is like the new tribal chief and Solo Sikoa was the captain, and like Roman Reigns is now this lackey figure, and now Roman Reigns is going to get abused and like, you know, punked around the way that he used to punk around the Usos or Solo, you know? Like, Roman Reigns has had a lot of sins he hasn't paid for yet. A lot of abuse he hasn't paid for yet. And so when Solo Sikoa could, you know, basically thumb down on Roman Reigns if The Rock were to beat him and become the new tribal chief. And if, Solo could make Roman's life a miserable existence and a living hell, I will be so happy to see that, because that is the real redemption arc. You understand? After WrestleMania 40, did Roman Reigns ever go out and apologize to Jey Uso for what he did to him? No. Did he ever apologize to Jimmy Uso? No. I mean, he had these like stupid little backstage segments where he would run into Jey Uso or Jimmy Uso and he'd be like, yeah, I'm proud of you. Like, gee, thanks you. You know what I mean? Thanks, bro. Oh my God, you're proud of me. Wow. That's all I really wanted, Uso. Like, thank you very much for abusing me for all these years and just trying to make it up to me because you're proud of me, right? What's next? You appreciate me and you love me? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense at all. And so we really need a genuine arc where he's paying for his sins. And, we need Jey Uso to kind of make that a talking point within this storyline as well. So I really hope we can get to a point where Solo can help sabotage the bloodline, help it, tear it down. And maybe The Rock is the final missing piece in all of this. And, maybe The Rock can come in, challenge Roman Reigns for Tribal Combat WrestleMania 40. Maybe for the 2 belts as well. That would make The Rock the ultimate freaking guy, right? And this all needs to happen if The Rock is going to win. Okay? If The Rock is not going to win, don't do this, right? If The Rock is not going to win, don't even bring him back. Don't even get him involved. I don't want to see it at all, because for what is that, right? For what, right? Like, we could easily have The Rock bring in a new level, a new chapter to the bloodline, right? The final boss is also the tribal chief with the 2 titles. The enforcer, Solo Sikoa, has both mid-card titles. And then maybe the Usos have both titles again. Just some crazy level of dominance and freaking terror that they can wreak upon the WWE. Like, that was something that I'm really missing now, right? Like I said at the beginning of the video, we're basically still doing something that we did half a decade ago, still today. And the only thing that's new about it is the fact that Solo Sikoa kind of became his own guy. But had he not, then what's new, right? The Usos aren't anything new. And luckily, Jacob Fatu is in the mix as well. So he could be this element of like a wild card. But aside from that, I don't really think, we can do a lot of good if it isn't for The Rock coming back and beating Roman Reigns. The Rock will be the new tribal chief. He will bring balance to Roman Reigns' power scaling. He will equalize the scene. It will no longer be such a big gap between Roman, Cody, and the rest of the locker room. You know what I'm saying? It could be that if The Rock beats Roman Reigns, then Roman will look a little bit more beatable against the other opponents. So, like, whenever he's wrestling, for example, Drew McIntyre or somebody else, he could look, beatable, and it, could basically sell the idea that, yes, Roman Reigns can lose in this instance or against this opponent, and that would make his matches interesting because, when he was Undisputed Champion, he would never lose on whatever pay-per-view it was, if it wasn't WrestleMania. And right now, he's beating everybody without the help of the bloodline, so he's even stronger than that time. So we definitely need The Rock to come in, equalize the scene, and breathe in a new chapter within the bloodline. And in all of this, Solo Sikoa has come out to be the hero that we just really desperately needed, right? Honestly, Roman Reigns is playing a great role as once again being the heel. Him being a babyface is just not in his blood, you know what I'm saying? He's just too much of a freaking authoritarian tyrant to be this likable guy, right? I mean, he can just, come out and have the people say Roman Reigns for all he wants, but ultimately, it is just not in his nature to be a guy like a Jey Uso or a Solo Sikoa or a Cody Rhodes. So he's got to play the bad guy role, and that's basically the best role that he can play. So I'm the heel's advocate, and I'm out.